guys. Let's start with our first breakout session. So this one is to talk about Osmosis and Greptile, and we're going to talk about how to build RL ready applications, and we'll help define that. Okay.
All right. So I'm Abhinav. I'm a founding engineer at Greptile. So a little bit about what we do. We review pull requests, so people can connect Greptile to their GitHub, and then each time a developer opens a PR, Greptile reviews it, looks for bugs, and if it finds any, it adds comments to the PR. So that's what Greptile is.
Yep. And as for Osmosis, we help companies post-train thousands of open source LLMs for use cases like codegen, tool use, and structured outputs. And we use state-of-the-art methods like GRPO, GSPO, and we're also quite a forward deploy company. So if there's a requirement of hey, I need to build evaluations, I need to build training infrastructure, I need to build inference, we can help them do it as well.
Yeah, so the big goal of Greptile is to provide the best possible code reviews on PRs. And so I think the way we like to think about code reviews is, so like Greptile is the system, the input to the system is a PR, and the output is a list of comments. And our goal is to make sure that every single one of those comments that we make are good. So like, what is good? It's like we define good as a comment that elicits a positive reaction from developers. And the good thing about developers is they're like always a little bit grumpy. So like, if they do have a positive reaction, that's a very strong signal that the comment is good. And so like, what is a positive reaction to a comment? There's like explicit positive reactions. So replies to Greptile. If a developer replies to Greptile comments and says, oh, like, thanks, Greptile, or like, that's a great catch, I probably shouldn't be logging passwords to console.log. That's a positive response. On Greptile onboarding, we encourage people to upvote or downvote Greptile comments. So if they upvote a Greptile comment, that's a positive response. So these are like explicit positive responses to Greptile comments. But there's also like an implicit response. So if Greptile makes a comment on like line 10, and then after this, a developer pushes a commit that changes line 10, we consider that as a positive response, because this is like, it's highly likely that the developer made that change because Greptile suggested something. So those are like the three examples of what we define as positive reactions to comments. And so like the pattern is, like our basic current workflow is pretty straightforward. We make comments, engineers react to them. They optionally could request a second review, a third review, and eventually once they're done, they say, okay, this PR is good to go, and then they merge it. And on merge time, we collect information about which comments did well and which comments didn't. So that's like the current state of the review process right now.
Okay, so given what Greptile said about requirements on improving code review quality, what do we actually do from here? Well, there's a couple of things we can start off from the bat. The first one is, what data are we actually collecting? So we're collecting things like what comments are actually changed, what comments are positive versus negative. We need a way to be able to aggregate them into a singular schema or a singular place, right? So we need to actually do things like merging feedback from engineers, merging feedback from sentiment analysis models, and merging feedback on root cause analysis of Greptile review impact per PR. And the next step is, okay, now we have the data, how do we design a reward function? Reward functions are critical in reinforcement learning because this is how your model can actually learn. The model gets a reward based on its action, and based on this action, it then decides whether I should do this more frequently, or I should do this less infrequently. It is inspired in nature, just like how we get dopamine responses based on something we do that's good, versus the pain response that we get when it's bad. Okay. So in the reward design, let's break it down a little bit more. We want to do these four things. We want to reward high-value comments. We want to remain neutral on normal comments. We want to penalize low-value comments. However, at the same time, we are not guaranteed that every single comment the model finds that's not in the data set that already exists is going to be bad. Maybe the model found a new comment that's actually really, really good and insightful, but because the original golden data set that we had didn't contain that comment, we shouldn't penalize it. So here's a more complicated diagram, but I'll break it down into a couple of simple steps. The first step is the incoming pull request. This is something production time. This is what the engineers made for a code change. And then we will go into what's called a policy model. The policy model, in a nutshell, is just the model that we're currently training so that it can be used in production after the training process. One thing in training is that we do multiple rollouts. A rollout is a definition of the model actually trying to go and find bugs for that PR. You can understand it as, instead of the model just finding the bugs once, it's going to try to find the bug maybe up to 5 different times, 10 different times, etc. And the way that this rollout can actually work is Greptile needs to have an environment that allows the model to actually treat each PR as an individualized, containerized session, right? And looking at the example here, rollout 1 found 2 bugs, and one of which overlaps with the known resolved issues, right? Just like Abhinav has said before, Greptile can collect information on how many bugs and how many comments was actually addressed. We can then use that as a reference data set for the reward function. Similarly, rollout 2 found 4 issues, all of which overlap, which is good. And rollout 3 found 6 issues with overlap of 5. This means it found 1 additional issue that the original golden data set did not find. A couple of reward metrics that we can put in here is for each issue found that is overlap and accepted, we give it a positive reward. For each issue found that was overlap and rejected, i.e. the engineer voted down or didn't actually address it at all, we will count that as a redundant action and it'll be penalized. And for things like high severity, low severity comments, we can issue different rewards so the model will be incentivized to perform whichever action that causes it to find a higher issue reward. And this is all computed into what's called a group advantage and used to update the model. You can see how there's actually a pretty good data flywheel here because every single PR a company make is incentivized to be merged, right? Like your engineers wouldn't be writing code that just don't get merged. If most of your PRs are not getting merged, you got a bigger problem than code review itself. So given the assumption or the guarantee that most PRs will get merged, every single time this happens, we get a new data point. And every single time we get a new data point, we can then update our policy model to understand and learn from that specific PR. Okay, so what's actually needed in the metric schema? Let's define it a little bit more clearly. We need the PR metadata and code change. We need the code-based context so that our model can explore the Greptile environment with the exact same context that was given to it in production. We need the Greptile generated comments so we know what to reference. And we also need the customer feedback on the comments so we know which one is good or bad. And finally, we need the final merge code so then we can actually tell whether or not the code that was merged is impacted by the Greptile PR system. So I'll put it like this for any application. In order for your application to be ready for IRL, you need to have your AI app as a standalone environment, which can be freely expressed as a multi-turn agent rollout. Okay, what does this mean? It means that what you evaluate will become what you reward. So first step is you need to have good evals. A lot of the apps today, albeit, will evaluate based on vibes, right? It looks correct, it looks incorrect, but how can you quantify that? That's the first step. The second step is how do you manage state for AI apps, right? In the context of Greptile, their state is the code base. Their state is whatever additional tools that was used to learn more about that specific PR. For your application, your state may be different, but this is what needs to be tracked in order for a model to explore a sandbox environment that closely mimics your production environment. And finally, like I said before, how do you sandbox your application so the model can explore freely in multiple different steps, right? We essentially want to provide the model with a container or an environment where it can mess up, where it can try new things. Obviously, you can't do this in production, so how do we take production data and let the model do this offline? Okay, and that's all the information that we have today. Thank you for coming to the talk, and if there's any questions, please raise your hand, and we'll pass around the mic.